Now we have formal usted commands with stem change verbs. So we have seen, will be seeing a variety of different verbs that it be very important to compartmentalize. Maybe not so much for right now for formal usted commands, but since this kind of stuff is going to be the basis, formal usted command conjugations are going to be the basis for things coming up in the future, whether it be something called the subjunctive or whether it be we need to know how to do these conjugations in order to understand the other kind of commands, informal to commands. We need to be able to compartmentalize what category a verb is. So it is absolutely more important than you'd ever know when you're doing formal usted commands to know, for example, what is a regular verb, like in the previous video, or what is a stem change verb in this video, what is a spell change verb that will be in the next video, what is a kargar-zar verb that will be in another video, what is an irregular verb, which will be in another video. And yeah, I just can't impress the importance enough of knowing what category these verbs fit into for now and also for later once again and later once again after that in your whole kind of Spanish acquisition, language career, passing a class, learning Spanish, whatever your goal may or may not be. So we still have formal usted commands. We're still going to be following our same rules. And now we just have stem change verbs. Many times students ask me, how am I supposed to know by looking at a verb if it is a stem change verb? And I have bad news for you. You can't. There is no way to look at a verb and to know just intrinsically by looking at the verb in its infinitive form. There's nothing that screams at us that says to us, this is a stem change verb. So, kind of act appropriately and do certain things to it. Unfortunately, if you do not remember what stem change verbs are, you need to go back and look at present tense. There are certain verbs in the present tense in the Spanish 1 class that are stem change verbs, and that should have been memorized and retained. But in case it hasn't been, just make sure that you go back and look at Spanish 1 type materials and look up stem change verbs. We have different categories of stem change verbs. We have E to IE. We have O to UE. Those are the two most common. We have E to I. So again, this video is about how to conjugate stem change verbs in formal usted commands, not to be confused with spell change verbs. I know they sound very similar, completely different. You might not see it now, but you absolutely will see it as we progress in other grammar tenses. So stem change verbs, I have put the two most common types up on the board, an example of a stem change verb that is E to IE, and an example of a stem change verb that is O to UE. I've also given you with this verb an example of an AR verb, so we can practice once again making AR verbs and as formal usted commands, and then this example is an IR verb, so we'll practice making ER, or in this case IR verbs, with formal usted commands. So same steps, it's just a matter of if I don't know that the verb pensar or that the verb dormir, if I don't know that those verbs are stem change verbs, step 1 is going to be impossible for me, because step 1 is the point at which we account for the stem change that occurs, and if we mess up step 1 and we don't account for the stem change, then all the other steps are wrong, and we have now made a word somewhere at the end that just doesn't exist. It's not just a misspelling, it's just wrong. It doesn't mean anything. So kind of the thing number 1 on this video would be making sure we can get to step 1, which goes all the way back to making sure that I know what verbs are stem change verbs in Spanish and reviewing Spanish 1 kinds of things. So here we go. Stem change verbs as formal usted command. We have the verb pensar, and then to think. So maybe I want to address somebody, give them a command, but I want to address them formally or respectfully or politely or whatever. And I want to say, think about the future or whatever it might be. Think about reviewing some change verbs so that you can be successful with this. So I want to give someone a formal send command using the verb pensar, to think. And I need to have memorized that it is a stem change verb in order to be successful with this and review it if I don't remember that. And then after that, I need to know what kind of a stem change verb it is. So it is an E to IE stem change verb. So when you take it to step one, remember, we will not skip any steps. With regular verbs that you just got done looking at in the last video or in a prior video, maybe some students would think, oh, well, I'm just going to take hablar, comer, vivir in their infinitive form, just chop off the AR or chop off the ER or whatever, and just kind of add the opposite endings that I have already learned is my step 3 to making formal usted commands. Okay, well, that's not going to be too bad for you whenever you're dealing with regular verbs, but when you're dealing with stem change verbs, that is going to be disastrous and literally just yield a word that's not a word. So again, step 1, recognize this as a stem change verb. Step 2, recognize what kind of a stem change verb it is and as a Spanish 1 kind of function. Then step 1 to creating our formal usted command with our E to IE stem change verb that just happens to be an AR verb. Step 1, going back to the yo conjugation of the present tense. The yo conjugation of pensar in the present tense is pienso, pienso. So it's spelled P-I-E-N-S-O. Step 2, we drop the O. So you can see that I have done that there. We drop the O. And step 3 is about adding opposite endings. So we learned in a previous video that if you have an AR verb and you want to convert it into a formal usted command, what letter would you add? You would add the letter E as the opposite ending. And that is what I have done right here. Once we get to this step, we have now created our formal usted command with pensar, and it's spelled like this, P-I-E-N-S-E, and it's pronounced piense, piense. So that is the affirmative command, think. But what if I wanted to make the negative, don't think? All I would have to do is add the word no in front of it. So my verb is going to stay the same, whether I want to say think or don't think. My piense, P-I-E-N-S-E, is going to remain the same. All I have to do to negate that, don't think, is put the word no in front of it. So my affirmative command, piense. My negative command, no piense. So please remember that our verb conjugations with formal usted commands are not going to change. If we want to make them negative, we just put the word no in front of it. So then we go to another kind of formal usted command that happens to be a stem change verb, and we look at the verb dormir. So the verb dormir means to sleep. If I wanted to look at somebody and for whatever reason, politely and courteously and respectfully say to them, sleep or don't sleep, giving them a command, I use the verb dormir, which happens to be an O to UE stem change verb. How would you know that? By having memorized it in Spanish 1. Or reviewing it now. So we have dormir, O to UE stem change verb. First step, we take it to the yo conjugation of the present tense and we get duermo, duermo. Taking into account that O to UE stem change is spelled D-U-E-R-M-O. Then step 2 to forming a formal usted command is to drop the O, and that's what I've done in step 2. And then step 3 is all about adding the appropriate opposite ending. So over here, whenever we were dealing with AR verb, our opposite ending was the letter E. But over here, whenever we're dealing with an IR or an ER verb, our opposite ending is what? The letter A. So with this word right here, we have formed our formal usted command, and it is pronounced duerma, duerma, and it is spelled D-U-E-R-M-A, duerma, sleep. But if I wanted to say don't sleep, then we just add the word no on the front of it, but our duerma stays the same, so I will say sleep, duerma, but don't sleep, no duerma. Still spelled D-U-E-R-M-A. So these are examples of an AR verb and then either an ER or in this case an IR verb. Examples of stem change verbs that are E to IE with the verb pensar, our first example. And then in our second and last example, with the verb dormir, an example of an O to UE stem change verb. I just want to reiterate one more time that it is absolutely important for now, but so much more importantly for later, or you'll really be upset that you didn't remember this stuff. It's so important to know what category of verbs we're talking about. Again, for this stuff with formal usted commands, for stuff that's coming up with informal to commands, with stuff that's coming after that called the subjunctive, because we won't be able to know how to do subsequent things if we're not strong in this. So please, please, please don't forget how to do stem change verbs. And if you need to look back and review stem change verbs, please make sure that you do that. So this is stem change verbs as formal usted commands. In the next video, we'll be looking at spell change verbs. Not to be confused with stem change verbs. Spell change verbs, just as a little FYI, we have regular verbs, we have stem change verbs, we have spell change verbs, we have car-gar-zar verbs. None of those are considered to be irregular because they fit into a category. And then we also have irregular verbs that are just crazy and don't follow any pattern. And that will be coming up also in another video. I just didn't want anybody to make the mistake, since we've just seen regular verbs. I didn't want anyone to all of a sudden say, oh, hey, these are irregular. No, they're not. They're stem change verbs, and then we will see spell change verbs, and then we will see car-gar-zar, and none of those are considered to be irregular because they're in a finite category that follows certain rules. So do not consider any of these categorizations of verbs to be irregular until we get to the irregular ones, and then those are the only irregular ones. So this is stem change verbs as formal usted commands.